Toto Wolff is not a man who's used to apologising, but what we saw recently in the paddock wasn't an apology, it was a confession of guilt. Mercedes openly admitted that several issues cost them hours of development. Hours. In Formula 1, where 1,000th of a second costs millions of dollars, losing hours in the simulator and on track is the same as burning the instruction manual before the test even starts. If you thought the team would show up in California, Miami, or Las Vegas with answers, the truth is they barely even know what the questions are. The stopwatch shows no mercy, and Mercedes looks like it's trying to run a marathon with its shoelaces tied together. When they talk about these several issues, the real translation for anyone who understands what happens behind the garages is just one: loss of technical control. The team that once was the gold standard of German engineering is acting like a startup that just got its first funding round and has no idea where to spend the money. Only here, the funding is hundreds of millions of dollars, and the product is the most sophisticated race car on the planet. They promise consistency but deliver chaos. The promise of this video is simple: to explain how the biggest structure on the grid got lost in its own maze. And I'm going straight to the point, without PR polished politeness. The problem is not the engine. The problem is not George Russell. The problem is that the correlation between what the supercomputer in Brackley says and what the tyre feels on the asphalt has simply broken down. They're flying blind. And when you fly blind at 320 kilometers per hour, the ending is never a podium. Think about this. While Red Bull is fine-tuning what is already perfect, and McLaren is finding aerodynamic pathways nobody else saw, Mercedes is stuck in the garage trying to figure out why sensor X doesn't talk to software Y. That's not bad luck. It's the reflection of a talent drain that has finally hit rock bottom. They've lost the brains of the operation over the last 3 years, and what's left is a heavy, slow structure that can't react in real time. In practice, those several hours they lost mean that the setup you'll see at the next Grand Prix is a guess. An educated guess, sure, but still a guess. For a team that used to pride itself on being pure math, admitting that technical problems stalled their progress is basically waving the white flag. They're not fighting for the championship. They're fighting to keep the lights on in the design department. And Lewis Hamilton? Well, Lewis figured this out a long time ago. His silence in the technical meetings says more than any Instagram post. He knows the Mercedes he loved died in 2021. Let's break down what these several issues really are. It's not just a loose bolt or a burned out sensor. The hole is much deeper. We're talking about thermal and aerodynamic correlation problems. That means Mercedes designs a part. The simulator says it will bring 0.2 of a second in lap time, but when it hits the track, the car is slower, or worse, becomes unpredictable. For a driver, unpredictability is the end of the road. Russell has said it over and over. The car does one thing on lap 1 and something completely different on lap 5. How are you supposed to trust late braking if you don't know whether the car will have the grip or will just ignore your existence and head straight for the wall? Those errors cost them hours, but in reality they cost them months of confidence. And there's something else you don't hear on the official broadcasts. Mercedes is struggling with integrating the new suspension system. They tried to copy Red Bull's anti-dive concept, something McLaren nailed, but Mercedes' version looks like a Frankenstein. The parts don't talk to each other. In trying to be the smartest people in the room, they created such a complex system that even their own engineers can't get it dialed in before the free practice sessions. Imagine you're trying to tune your home theatre sound, but every time you turn up the bass, the kitchen light goes out. That's the level of confusion in Mercedes electronics and hydraulics right now. They talk about those issues as if they were minor bumps in the road, but in the real world of F1, that's a sign that the car's base platform is corrupted. You don't fix that with an overnight software update. The data coming out of the paddock indicates that the airflow under the car is so unstable that the team had to raise the ride height. What happens when you raise the car? You lose downforce. What happens when you lose downforce? The tyres slide. What happens when the tyres slide? They overheat and are dead in 3 laps. It's a domino effect of technical incompetence that started with those several hours they tried to downplay in the report. The way I see it, Mercedes is stuck in technical denial. They still look at the 2018 trophies and think the solution will fall from the sky because we are Mercedes. But the stopwatch doesn't care about pedigree. Ferrari learned that the hard way over the last decade. McLaren learned it by eating dust at the back of the grid. Now it's Mercedes' turn to face the mirror and admit that its working methods are obsolete under the ground effect regulations. Now, let's talk about what this means for the future, because that's where the real pain hits. If you're a Mercedes fan waiting for 2026 like it's the promised land, I've got bad news. The new engine might be incredible, but if the team can't solve basic mechanical and aerodynamic integration problems today, what makes you believe they'll nail an even more complex rule set in such a short time? These hours they're losing, now at interest, they'll pay out of their 2026 development time. It's technical debt that only piles up. While Red Bull is already testing concepts for 2 years from now on top of a solid base, Mercedes is troubleshooting problems that should have been fixed in 2022. It's embarrassing. It's like watching a heavyweight champion trip over his own shadow on his way into the ring. And then there's the human factor. Morale in Brackley is at the lowest point in the team's history. Elite engineers don't like working on projects that systematically fail. The several issues they talk about are really symptoms of an identity crisis. They no longer know who they are. Are they a top team trying to fight back, or a midfield team trying to survive? The answer to that question will decide whether Mercedes stays in F1 for the next 10 years, or the Daimler board in Stuttgart starts asking why they're pouring hundreds of millions of euros into a project that only generates negative headlines. The truth hurts, but it needs to be said. Mercedes has become the new team of tomorrow. It's always the next upgrade, the next package, the next season. But tomorrow never comes. And for us fans who really understand the sport and don't fall for PR nonsense, the time for excuses is over. Either they deliver a car that isn't a nightmare to drive, or the 3-pointed star will become just a decorative detail in the middle of the pack. Mercedes reported several issues. I'm only reporting one. They've lost their touch. Now, it's your call. Do you think those hours they lost are just a minor detail, or the final nail in the coffin of this Mercedes era? Do you think George Russell has what it takes to carry this piano on his own? Or will he jump ship the moment a seat at Red Bull or McLaren opens up? Tell me in the comments. No filters, no fanboy stuff. I want your rating for Toto Wolff's management this season. I'm out.